I'm Joseph Mansour, and this is my study on anticipatory nostalgia's effect on the upperclassmen high school students. So, first, what is anticipatory nostalgia? Anticipatory nostalgia, defined by Baccio, a leading researcher in the field, is a feeling of loss for the current moment as if it has already passed. Baccio defines this as a separator from other types of nostalgias because it's a specific feeling of removal from your current situation or feeling that of. So, getting into my lit review, what have participants perceived while feeling anticipatory nostalgia? These feelings of anticipatory nostalgia have been cited to have feelings of self-affirming effects. That either someone feeling this have a belief that times will get better if they're having hard times, or they must live more fully in the moment to appreciate this, such as Betts and Kurtz both study. But however, these studies were both only conducted on college-level students. Specifically in a Baccio study, it showed that people prone to anticipatory nostalgia would gather information from stories in order to cope with their own problems they were facing. It can be used in a psychological way to create an identity and build yourself around your current environment, which could be shown in research done by Baccio. This was a graph done by Baccio, which showed how anticipatory nostalgia was more related to anxiety and then enjoyment than being directly related to enjoyment, which could suggest the self-affirming feelings. So there is a related field called temporal scarcity, and this is heavily related in the creation of prompts for anticipatory nostalgia. This is a feeling that you have limited time left in the situation that you are currently in. This is heavily related to the creation of prompts, as I said, because it primes the participants to think in a way that would encourage them to think with anticipatory nostalgia. Pointed out by Dr. Furahan, when primed for nostalgic thinking, the subject will become aware of their temporal essence, or essentially how they think of themselves based in time. Through this connection, research is able to create conditions in which anticipatory nostalgia will be formed in participants' minds, but create authentic results. So, what studies have taken away? Anticipatory nostalgia seem to have adverse emotional effects on the participants in the study. Although it can be used to find self-soothing mechanisms, it generally is related to a feeling of not belonging or anxiety. People prone to anticipatory nostalgia are less likely to be happy in the present and more likely to be worried, or have a feeling of fear, a feeling of FOMO when they're in a current situation. These have been related to people that do not wish to go to the future and have a reluctance and want to hold on to the passing moments that they are in. And this type of nostalgia is especially contained in retrospective thoughts, in that when people are presented to think about their current or past situations, they usually tend to exhibit anticipatory nostalgia. So I want to take one look at a Kurtz study, Kurt's study on temporal scarcity, which is my parent study for this, as I took part of my codebook and the method process from Jim Kurtz. This study set up a way in which anticipatory nostalgia could be connected to temporal scarcity and used for questioning participants in a questionnaire model. I was able to code more specifically for nostalgia and in order to find the effects that this might have on upperclassmen students, unlike her using it on college students. So this leads me to my gap. There's been no research done on only high school students, and it all has been done on college level students. And this further elicited my question: how does anticipatory nostalgia affect the upperclassmen high school temporal appreciation? This topic interested me because it allowed me to explore my high school experience from a perspective that I would not be able to see otherwise. And I believe that is impactful for others and could be interesting to others because it allows us to see what high school juniors and seniors might be thinking as they move on to college. I chose specifically high school upperclassmen not only because it was part of the gap, but because this is a pivotal moment in their lives as they will be going off to college soon and will need to look back on these experiences to encourage further communication and enjoyment in their college life. I was hoping to find a connection, and I hypothesized that seniors would either be wishing they had more time in high school or feeling very impacted by their community in high school. So this gets me into my methodology. I had a 10-minute writing questionnaire, which was based on 3 questions that Kurtz used in her studies, just changed so they fit to my participants. I have 15 total participants, 10 juniors and 5 seniors, and I used deductive coding on multiple themes to try and limit it down to anticipatory nostalgia and temporal thinking. I chose specifically questionnaires, not only because of my parent study, but shown through research done by International Journal of English and Cultural Studies. They are effective at eliciting qualitative data results for open-ended questions that can provide clear, deductive codes. This can help me answer my research question because it allows me to relate anticipatory nostalgia and temporal scarcity together in prompts and codes for the results. This method was better than other methods that I found in the field because the implications that you can make with smaller groups in a less amount of time was more beneficial than other research methods that took a longer amount of time and a vast more amount of participants. And I specifically used deductive coding as a way that I could compare my results to other findings in the field in order to make my results stronger. And I want to take a closer look at specifically the 3 questions I used. And I highlighted 2 parts of the questions. I underlined the first part because this part engages the participant to use anticipatory nostalgia in their mind because it engages temporal scarcity and causes them to think in a certain way in which their responses would be password thinking about the responses to the second part, which is how you feel about blank. This could be friends, community, or another thing, and this would allow me to get specific examples and to pull specific quotes from the results. I also want to look at my theme book in which I've coded for the themes of temporal, nostalgic, and feelings, because as shown in the past research. And I took out the small part just to go through how I did it. I read the paper multiple times and went through sub-themes and related it back to past research in which they gave examples of what those might relate to. So, into my results. I gathered 5 themes, 3 major themes and 2 sub-themes. I'll be going further depth into the major themes and won't be going into further depth into the 2 sub-themes because they were supported by research of Bacho and Zhao, as they're pretty general in the field of anticipatory nostalgia, because it is having a feelings of detachedness as defined in the definition of anticipatory nostalgia, and it is also language used to describe the present in the past, which is an indicator that anticipatory nostalgia has occurred. So, my first major theme was a relation back to the beginning of high school. This mostly showed signs of anticipatory nostalgia, specifically because it referred to belonging to the past as presented by Bacho in her definition. Most of these students were seniors, however there were a couple of juniors, and I took a quote specifically from one of these juniors, which was, "I met my friends freshman year, I have mixed feelings about them now." This could show anticipatory nostalgia because it is a feeling that he wants to change what has happened in the past, or does not feel like he belongs to his current situation, which would be his friends. Most of the responses that fit under this theme related their end of the experience of high school to a longing to go back to freshman year and change or advise their freshman self in some way. This, when related to anticipatory nostalgia, could suggest that upperclassmen, specifically seniors, are prone to thinking with anticipatory nostalgia and may be more cynical about their past experiences and the environment that they're in. Another thing connected to the seniors specifically being more anticipatory nostalgia was all 5 seniors and none of the juniors showed independence from their current situation and friendships. Through either identification of feelings of pride or a feeling that they will, quote, will drift away from their friendships, this relates to the idea of, again, of not belonging to their own communities. Seniors, when presented with prompts to think both nostalgically and temporally about their current state in school, will most likely look forward with either resent or separation from their current condition. This was contradictory to what was found in Kurtz, and also contradictory to what I hypothesized at the beginning of my research, because I thought that seniors would be more anchored in their current environment and not as willing to let go. And on to my third and final major theme. Finally, what showed up in all groups was when talking about their hopes for their friends and their future, they would usually make claims as of what they wanted to do, but then quickly backtrack on those statements and talk about missing their friends. As shown in this quote, "I wonder who I will stay with." Before, in his questionnaire, the participant was writing about him wanting to go out with his friends more after school, but then he backtracked into saying, "I wonder who I will stay with." This could suggest that these participants have already formed the self-soothing mechanisms that I talked about in my literature review that Bacho explained, because when they have to feel like they are removed from a situation such as high school, they engage in those self-soothing mechanisms to feel safe in their current environment. So, on to my discussion. I conclude that high schoolers, and especially seniors, are prone to this way of thinking. However, juniors may have different approaches, as I did not see them to have anticipatory nostalgic thinking that often in their writings, and I could not do this, and I couldn't see it with my code book. I hypothesize that this is because seniors have spent more time thinking in a way that would engage anticipatory nostalgia, and thus creating those self-soothing mechanisms. However, more research would need to be done to prove this in any way and to support my claim right there. And this is to say that the upperclassmen most definitely have a feeling, or will have feeling of nostalgias, but it could be less than or more influential experiences in their lives, as supported by past research in which they had more anticipatory nostalgia in college. This was again contradictory to my hypothesis, which I thought since this would be one of the most important moments of their lives, moving off to college, they would have a lot of anticipatory nostalgia and a strong connection to their basis at their current school. So, in conclusion, what are my limitations and what can I do for further research? My limitations with my demographics, it was all male population, and it was rather small, which isn't bad for I can't generalize off my population, which isn't bad for qualitative research, but it is said that if more research would want to be done to make generalizations, this would not apply. And then there was also research bias. Since I had to do an IRB and they had to fill out consent forms, they did know what anticipatory nostalgia was before they were writing some of my answers, and that would cause them to probably make their answers more towards what they believed I wanted to see as in the form of anticipatory nostalgia. In further research, I would engage further sample size and longitudinal studies to see if the anticipatory nostalgia of the students would actually turn into nostalgic feelings when they are in college. Thank you.
Really impressive, Joseph. So the committee's got a few questions for you. I'll go ahead and start. So tell us a little bit about your journey. How did your initial exploration of the scholarly work lead to your final research question? Walk us through that process of how you got onto this idea.
So initially, I really wanted to focus on nostalgia in high schoolers, just general nostalgia, or using nostalgic memes like record players. But then I found this one study by Baccio, my first study that I found on anticipatory nostalgia, and I thought that could heavily relate to the field of high schoolers because of the experiences that they were going on currently. And that also led me in her bibliography was temporal scarcity, and that allowed me to connect those two ideas together to create answers, to create my methods and my results.
Nice.
So what are, do you think, the real world implications or consequences related to your findings?
I think the real world implications for this research would be for either parents or for the students themselves to know how they might feel and how they can better engage with the society around them when they are leaving high school, and how they might tend to make an attempt to be more connected to their community when they have these feelings of anxiety or novel.
The question I picked out here to ask you was about research skills. And what did you develop as a skill in this process, and how do you think you could use that in the future?
I think the biggest skill that I learned was definitely time management and how to work with people. As I worked with high school level students, it was very hard to get them on time and to get all my research done very efficiently. And I think this allowed me to really have that idea in my mind that I have to plan things ahead and be able to get concrete dates down in order to have something accomplished.